I think the pro-life, this fight over abortion has been won not by politics, but by the media.
Oh,
the
yeah,
media's shaping
sure.
of the narrative as in terms of just women's rights. Who wants to take away rights, right? Rights, that idea of rights is something that's so imbued in what it means to be American that to take away rights seems like this horrific thing. So the issue is not the political thing. It's who's going to win the media narrative
Right.
about this.
Yeah.
Because if you portray it as, okay, we're serving the most vulnerable in taking care of the unborn. We have, goodness gracious, it's been pro-lifers who run these beautiful clinics for women that are struggling and homes for the abused women and women and children. The Sisters of Life and all the things that we do, the Birthright and Hope Line and all these great organizations. If we win that narrative, I believe the entire country will come along.
Oh, absolutely.
But we have to win that narrative, and that's almost impossible when you have CNN and NBC being the main narrative that people listen to.
Right. Yeah, and I think, and when we talk about, so that's where that's where politics, that's where when we start talking about these issues with politics, it becomes quite tricky, right? Because the politicians are going to say what they need to say to get elected.
Sure.
Right. And so, it's very challenging thing, and I think that's why, and that's like a perpetual thing with politicians. Is that you never actually know what they truly believe. That's kind of what I started, right? You actually don't know what they believe. They say what they need to say to get elected.
So I think it's often said that all politics is local, and I think that there's a lot of truth to that. In that, right now, I think what the pro-life movement needs to do is obviously continue to pray, but educate. Yeah. Educate. Because I was kind of flabbergasted. Around the last March for Life back in January, we had a youth group night about pro-life. And our youth group is mostly public school kids and actually mostly unchurched kids. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic, and I was really expecting tons of pushback, and I got none.
Wow.
The kids were like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, I didn't know that that's what an abortion was, and that's why it's bad. Okay, I agree. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I just gave them, like, rational arguments, and they agreed with me.
Yeah.
Because all they're hearing from the media is women's rights. So if we focus as pro-lifers on education as to what really is an abortion,
right.
What is the human person, that it starts at conception, and then that's worth preserving and sacrificing for.
Yeah, So maybe just to finish my point, we can move on. But I would say that my prediction is that in the next 10 to 15 years, the abortion argument in the political sphere will actually disappear. And maybe it shouldn't. I'm not saying that's a good thing. So just for the record.
I don't know.
But I would say that it's going to disappear, where it just won't be spoken of, because if the parties agree, there's nothing to talk about. But that actually gives us quite an opportunity, right? Because if it's not on CNN every day, if it's not on Fox News every day, that actually allows the pro-life movement to then do real work on the ground
and control the narrative,
the political ramifications of it, which is a good thing, because we don't want, as Joe said, we don't want the pro-life movement and a party to be commingled necessarily.
Yeah, but people thought after Roe versus Wade was passed that it would fall out of public consciousness, or after Dobbs was passed. It's like, okay, it's settled. It's not settled. It hasn't been settled in 55 years.
Right. But,
go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. A couple of things. I agree with the points you guys are making that the real work on the ground level, that's always been true. It's never primarily a political thing. What Roe did is it froze the politics of abortion. Paul said this earlier. It prevented the legislation on abortion, which means it also really prevented substantive political discussion, because it was discussion without any possible effect. So I don't we're unsettled now as we were with passing of Roe, but in a different way, because now there are potential consequences to what people say about abortion, which means that Republicans aren't going to come out here. And it's worth noting, by the way, how flat-footed all of the Republican states were. I mean, there was no state that was ready for the thing they say that we say we've been striving for decades.
Well, there were a lot of there were a lot of trigger laws.
Came out. There was a lot.
There were trigger laws. There were trigger laws that nobody was willing to defend. That's my point. There's nobody who had actually thought through. No legislative body had actually thought through in a systematic way what they were willing to defend if they actually had to. That's my point. Because if you watch these trigger laws, one by one they start falling because of the courts, but also because of referenda and because Republicans themselves oftentimes have changed them. I would just say that there are Republican there are elected Republicans who are serious about abortion still, who are seriously against abortion. And it's just, this is the same thing to me as people say all politicians are liars. Because when you say all politicians are liars, then when Kamala and Trump come out here and they lie just with incredible abandon, it makes it all the same thing. It's also not the case. Just like that's not true. There are more honest politicians than others. There are politicians who are, if not perfectly consistently pro-life, authentically pro-life, and maybe even in an incremental way with which we might be personally uncomfortable. But being incrementally pro-life is substantively different and significantly better than being actively pro-choice or just totally abandoning the issue and saying, I really don't care what happens, honestly, like, pass your ban on partial birth abortion, get out of my way. Those are totally different things. Totally different things. We can't, if we find it out, then we lose the argument.
Joe, my point is that it's very hard to, like, as just an individual, we actually don't have the ability to actually suss that out, though. Right. And when you think of, like, because you can only hear what they say and read what they write. But you're right. Hold up. But you're right,
you can also see what they do.
You could see what they do, and I think that's where you can see it more. But let's see. I would say that, I guess my confidence in Republican politicians and their pro-life stances was challenged and continues to disappoint. And so I don't think that we can rely on the past to determine the future for this. It's like when you open a brokerage account, past performance is not indicative of future performance, and it's true in this case because the playing field is different. So I would just be careful. I think we have to be careful when we kind of say that there's people that are truly pro-life and they do this and this. I've lost confidence.
There are people who are more. Well, yeah, okay, fine, but like after Dobbs came out, Ron DeSantis, I have plenty of other disagreements with him, but did actually try to pass a serious abortion restriction, which Trump opposed and said don't vote for. So again, the way he's here, a substantive difference. So it's one thing to go out on the campaign trail and say, I'm in favor of giving, giving a unicorn in every pot type thing, right? But like once it actually comes down to your political future on the line and you're willing to say, here's my actual position, abortion's not after 6 weeks, and then you're gonna run on that. Okay, I trust that person a lot more because you've put some skin in the game here, right? So it's just again, it's different. It's just different. And I don't think we can pretend we don't have that evidence. We have it. You know what I mean?